'Cause you know I'm feeling something's missing. No, it's not what I had wished for. Let's stop praying for love, yeah.
Hi everyone, it's Christina from the DIYmummy.com, and today I want to share with you some DIY decor ideas for Valentine's Day. So for these DIYs, I am using mostly dollar store items, so things from Dollar Tree or Dollarama here in Canada, as well as things that I just had around the house. So these are really inexpensive to make, and I think they turned out so cozy and cute. Also, I'm sharing how I decorated our living room for Valentine's Day in a really cozy and romantic style. So let's get started. This first DIY are little trinket bowls. So I found these heart-shaped bowls at Dollarama here in Canada and these napkins on Amazon. Everything that you can find online, I will link to the description box below. So first, take the bottom of your bowl and use it as a stencil and trace the heart shape onto the napkins. Next, just pull off one ply of the napkins and make sure that the heart shape fits inside the bottom of your heart bowl. You want to only use one ply because that's going to stick to the bottom of the napkin. We're using Mod Podge here, so I'm just using a matte Mod Podge, and use a little paintbrush and paint some Mod Podge onto the bottom of the bowls and slightly up the side of the bowls. Then take the heart-shaped napkin pieces and place them into the Mod Podge and use your finger to make sure they're pressed nicely into the bottom of your bowl and spread them evenly. The interesting thing about using napkins to Mod Podge to items is that they're going to look a little bit wrinkly, but I love that vintage look. So you can repeat that with a second bowl, and then once you're finished putting the napkins in the bottom of the bowls, take the Mod Podge and the brush and apply 1 or 2 coats of Mod Podge onto the top of the napkin. You just want to make sure every coat dries in between coats. So once these are all dry, you can use them as little trinket bowls for Valentine's Day, perhaps for jewelry or little decor items, or you can even use them for snacks. Just make sure to very gently hand wash them and use a couple of coats of Mod Podge if you're doing that. The next DIY is a Valentine's Day inspired wreath. So you might remember this wreath that I made with Dollar Tree foam wreath form as well as Dollar Tree mop heads. I will leave a link to that full tutorial down in the description box below. I just took that apart and then used some chenille yarn. I found this one at Michael's. I'll try to link to some similar ones below, and crochet about 6 little hearts. Now this is a full tutorial in itself. I have a full video on how to crochet these hearts, and I'll link it down in the description box below. Alternatively, if you don't want to crochet, you can just cut small heart shapes out of pink felt. Next, take some wired ribbon. So I had this pink wired ribbon. I love the velvet and I love the gold lame backing, and just tie it into a very simple bow. And then what you can do is kind of bend the bottom of the bow pieces like this to make them look just sort of drapey and romantic looking, and fold the very bottoms and cut them at an angle to create V shapes. Next, you can take a hot glue gun and put a little blob of hot glue on the back center of the bow and secure it to the bottom of the wreath. Next, take some stick pins and insert them into the middle of your crochet or your cutout felt hearts and push them right into that foam wreath form. I still love how these microfiber mops look on this wreath. I love the fluffy look of it. Since it's so cold here still in Alberta, Canada, I'm trying to make all of my Valentine's decor still feel really cozy and soft, and I think this wreath certainly feels that way. And here's how this wreath turns out. I put it on our office door in our living room, and I think it looks so romantic and cozy. The next DIY is a little beaded garland. So I found this heart shape at the Dollarama here in Canada. So you can take whatever sort of paint that you want. I'm just using leftover paint, just latex paint in a really soft blush pink color, and go ahead and paint the front, back, and sides of your heart. Once the heart is all painted and dried, you can take a hammer and a nail and punch a hole in it, or you can take a drill. And then take some yarn about double the length of the garland you want to create, fold it in half, and put the top half loop through the hole that you created in the top of the heart. Then you want to take the ends of that yarn and pull it through the loop you created so that it's secure to the heart, just like this. I found these wooden beads at Dollarama. And then you're going to take a darning needle or a large yarn needle, place it onto the end of the yarn, and then go ahead and thread a bunch of these wooden beads onto the string. So you can make this little garland as short or as long as you'd like. Mine's probably about a little over a foot long. And then once you reach the end of the garland, once you've made it as long as you'd like to make it, you can just secure the end with a square knot. I really liked the light blonde wood color of these beads. Next, you can create or buy a tassel. I do have a whole tassel tutorial. I will link to it down in the description box below. I'm just using thrifted yarn here, which works really well, nice and inexpensive, and you can thread the needle through the top of it and then secure it with a square knot as well. Once your tassel is tied securely to the end of your string of your garland, you can just pull the excess yarn down over the tassel, use another piece of scrap yarn to tie the tassel just like this, and trim any edges that you need. Now I thought for an interesting little detail for this little garland, you can take some dollar store lace trim and you can tie it around the center of the heart. You can also secure it with a little dab of hot glue underneath the center of the knot on the ribbon. And here's how this little garland turned out. I think it adds such a sweet texture to, say, a coffee table arrangement or a little centerpiece for Valentine's Day. The next DIY that I want to make is a beautiful little cushion, and this is a heart-shaped cushion. I'm also using crochet for this one. So you can finger crochet a chain. Basically, you make a slip knot and then you pull a loop through a loop and continue doing that with your fingers. This is something my girls love to do, so you can do it this way. However, I do prefer to use a crochet hook when I'm making a crochet chain. So I'm just using this pink chenille yarn that I had on hand from Michael's clearance. I'm using a crochet hook, creating a slip knot, and then creating a crochet chain. If you don't know how to make a chain, I will link to a tutorial all about that down in that description box below. So you can make this quite long, probably a few yards long. It was a little bit difficult for me to know exactly how long to make this, so just leave your yarn on the end of the chain. Don't cut it off or tie it off because you can always crochet more of the chain later. Next, take a big heart shape that you've cut out or traced. That's about 11.5 to 12 inches high and long. I actually used my Cricut machine to cut this one out. And then you can place it in the middle of a pillow cover. I found this pillow cover at H&M. I'll link to it down below. And then you can trace around the heart shape to create your heart stencil. Next, take a hot glue gun and use your trace shape as a guide, and you can glue along that shape and then start attaching your crocheted chain to the shape. Make sure to press the crochet chain firmly into the bead of hot glue and make sure that you move it quickly before the hot glue cools so that it sets in the correct place. You could also consider using a thicker yarn for this if you want a little bit of a chunkier look, and then maybe you wouldn't even have to crochet a chain at all. The yarn would be thick enough. So there's different options for this DIY, and you can kind of play with it and make it your own. So continue attaching the crochet chain in stages like this. So you're starting with the outside layer and then an inside layer. Just make sure when you're adding the bead of hot glue that you add it nice and close to the previous layer. If you happen to run out of crochet chain like I did here, your yarn is still attached, so you can start chaining some more and make it as long as you want. And then continue with the process of applying hot glue onto the fabric and then pushing the crochet chain in. So since you're using hot glue here, this will be a hand wash item only. You could also use fabric glue or something else. If you'd like to put this in the wash, you can experiment with different ways to fasten this. So I thought I was going to fill up this entire heart with these crochet chains, but I actually really liked how it looked with just this outline shape. So once I got to about 5 layers of chains, I just crocheted enough chain to finish off this final layer. And then if you do the same thing as me, you can just pull out a few chains if you have it a little bit long, cut off the excess yarn and pull it through that final loop. Then you can glue down those little ends and kind of tuck them a little bit underneath the chains of the crochet. And this is how this beautiful heart pillowcase turned out. I think this is my favorite one. I love how this looks. It's so cozy and soft, and of course I love hearts at Valentine's Day. This next one is a cute little heart plaque. I found these ones at Dollarama for $2. I do like the wood look of them, however I thought I was going to paint them this year, so I used that same leftover latex paint in the blush pink and went ahead and painted the top and the sides of these hearts. Next, you can take some faux florals. I'm using some lavender for a romantic look and some lace trim from the Dollar Tree or Dollarama. And then tie some lace trim around that faux floral and attach it kind of diagonally to the front of this little heart plaque. You can tie it in a little knot and then use your scissors to trim the ends. And this is just a sweet little decoration for Valentine's Day that you can use as a filler. So I have a couple on my mantle and a couple in my centerpiece on my coffee table as well. This final DIY is some Valentine's Day art. I love these artist panels from Dollarama. You might remember a couple of DIYs I've done in the past with these. So what I've learned in the past is you definitely just need to sand these, make sure that all of the little pieces are gone. I'm using some Fusion mineral paint samples that they sent me. It's almost like a chalk style paint. It's actually a really beautiful paint, and I'm using this soft gray color, and I'm going ahead and painting the back and the sides of this artist panel. So if you're going ahead and doing this as well, you can use any sort of paint you want, latex paint, chalk style paint, even stain would work as well. So paint the back of the artist panel, the sides, and the top and the inside sides like I'm doing here. Next, take a couple of pieces of 12 by 12 scrap paper, and then you're going to want to place them together so the pattern continues. So I kind of chopped mine a little bit and placed it together because the artist panel is a little bit longer than that 12 inches. So trim it to size and just make sure that your patterns are matching if you're using a printed sort of paper like I am here. This one is from Cricut. Then take some Mod Podge. I'm using that same matte Mod Podge as I used for my first DIY, and go and smooth it all over the bottom of the artist panel with a brush. Then take those pieces of cardstock and smooth them onto the Mod Podge. Next, you can take some more Mod Podge and a paintbrush and apply it all over the surface of that paper. This seals everything up and gives this art a really pretty finish. Now once that's dry, or as that's drying, you can cut out some heart shapes. So I'm using my Cricut for this as well. Love my Cricut. I will leave info on it in the description box below, but you can cut some hearts by hand. These ones are about 2 inches wide, and I cut 20 hearts. Next, you're going to want to make a grid on your piece of art. So I'm making a grid that is 4 wide by 5 high. So I'm just using a clear ruler to make that grid. I found these little sticky dots at the Dollar Tree, and then I'm using those to adhere the hearts onto my art. So I'm creating sort of an ombre effect here. I made some lighter pink hearts, then I made some polka dot hearts, and then finally I made some red colored hearts. So I have 2 rows of light hearts, then I have 2 rows of polka dot hearts, and then I have just 1 row of red hearts to create that ombre effect. And you can use a ruler at the end to make sure everything is nice and lined up. And here's how this art turned out. I think it looks so sweet, and I love how it looks on my mantle for Valentine's Day. So in our living room, I added lots of romantic and cozy elements, lots of candles. I have lots of pink and white pillows on our sofa. And then I'm adding some romantic details to our ottoman. So I have that little garland. I have my little DIY heart-shaped cookie bowl. I used some faux florals from Amazon. I love their faux peonies, and lots of faux furs because it is so cold here. Minus 40 degrees Celsius it was last week. So definitely still want to keep everything nice and cozy. I have lots of throws in here and a lot of my knitting in that basket there. The Do All Things with Love art is from a local creator. I will link to that art down in the description box below. And then on my mantle, I have the DIY art, some candles, and some more flowers. I think our living room looks so cozy for Valentine's Day, and I love how all of the DIY inexpensive decor items were incorporated into our decor. Thanks so much for watching my video today. I hope you enjoyed these DIYs. Let me know down in the comments below what you thought of the projects and which one was your favorite. I would love to know. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more DIY and decor ideas on a budget. I'm gonna leave some more videos that I hope you're going to enjoy next, right up here.